Welcome to Are You Real, episode 70.
Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, Jon Fuller.
Hey Roar Nation, before we get started today, I want to thank you guys for the emails and the reviews that you guys leave. And I'd like to read them off. One that I got was from Marissa. She said, just wanted to thank you for the podcast. It's helped me a lot. It is my favorite podcast. I love how you combine Jesus with finding your life purpose because it's pretty impossible to find it without him. I'm currently on a journey of finding mine, and I have found many useful lessons and tips from your interviews that are helping me to find my way. One suggestion, I have to say you should have some more women on. I notice it's always men, and I've only heard one woman, and that one would be your wife. And that was my favorite and most inspiring episode. Me too, so thank you, Marissa. She's my favorite. I don't mind listening to men, but it would be a little bit more, even because I can relate with women better since I am one. Again, just a friendly tip. Thanks for all you do and so much appreciated. So Marissa, what's awesome about that is this week I brought on a woman in your favorite episode. Again, my wife. So it's going to be awesome, right, baby?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, but real quick, for those of you that are women, we are bringing some more on. Working hard. I've kind of reached out to some authors and actually a publishing company to bring some on. But I did want to tell you, for you ladies who want to connect with some other women who have been on the show, I did episode 60 with Ashley Boucher. She talks about fashion and her journey. That was a great one. Episode 44 with Alyssa De Lorenzo. She talks about marriage. They have a phenomenal podcast. They're friends of ours. And then back on 34, I'm only going back a couple episodes. There's some more further back. But episode 34 with Jackie Carpenter, she's an author, best-selling author. She does, I think, the Christian View. Anyways, she was really fun too, so you would want to listen to those. So anyways, and also, okay, so reviews on iTunes. Guys, please get on there. Leave us some reviews. It always helps other people check out the show. And please share it. Like with 3 friends. Right now, think of 3 friends who could use the show and just post it out there or get on our Facebook. But I want to tell you thank you to JC, maybe? J-A-C-Y? You think it's JC Kasey? 0760. She said, this podcast is such a great teaching platform to help grow and develop the life created you to be. So anyways, want to thank you for that. And then our last episode, or our last review, was from Jason Chestnut, and he said crap. And he only left 1 star. So I'm thinking he was in the middle of something and like something happened and he was like, oh crap, and just left 1 star and was in a hurry and forgot to leave the other 4. So just saying, I could be wrong. I think I am wrong. Am I wrong, Kasey?
I hope so.
I'm probably wrong. So anyways, though, but thank you guys for the reviews. I hope the show hits you in the right place spiritually. But anyway, so I brought on Kasey. We get a lot of questions. Every week I get emails and people ask us. I hear a lot because we are extremely driven, high A personalities, and we go a lot. So I hear a lot of people say, like, how do you do it, or how do you make things work? And honestly, the only reason life works for me around here is because of my wife. So I definitely want to say thank you, Kasey. She's rolling her eyes at me right now. You can't see that, but it's the truth. And so anyways, I want to bring her on from a woman's perspective of how we deal and relate with life, relationships, business, and how we make it all work. Because I think even when you find purpose, and even if you have it, no matter what, there is such a balance to life. Whether you're married or not, doesn't matter if you're going to school, you have a job, you have kids, you don't have kids. I have found no matter what, people are just busy and life can be really hard. So we're going to talk today about how we make that all work. So Kasey, you ready to jump into this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So one of the questions that we recently got was, I'm going to read it off. No, we printed it out. It says, how do we make things work when things are happening around me, like kids, activities, church, work, etc., that you can't control or that I'm already committed to? So, Kasey, I'm just going to start with you and start with you like I'm going to start with myself. That would be weird. Anyways, so how do you make things work with all the stuff that we have going on?
Well, okay, reading this question, one of the first things that came to my mind was how, everything in our life, there's a balance to it. And you can't keep that balance unless you have things in a proper order. And so the first thing I would say to that is that you need to have God and your spouse as your first priority. And when I say that, I don't mean that they take up all your time and all of your effort and all of your energy and everything goes into, that. But what I'm saying is having that as your priority. And so that I would say would be the starting place. So kind of look at your life and say, okay, what is this a priority in my life?
I think, is that a question though? Maybe it is. But I guess my question would be is how do you prioritize that though?
Yeah. I would say making an effort and to keep things in a certain order. So like, for example, I do a lot of time blocking, and you have to look at each week, each month, each week, and each day as the time that's allotted you, and how do you need to fill that space.
Okay.
So if I'm looking at it, say, from a weekly perspective, am I taking the time to read my word? Am I taking the time to get in the presence of God and allow myself to just soak up his presence? And like I said, that doesn't mean that if something happens one day and that doesn't happen, that my life is completely out of control and out of balance and it's not going to work. But what that does mean is that I'm going to strive for that. I'm going to shoot for that. Is my spouse, are we working together? Are we taking time to set goals together and move forward together in our relationship and in life in general? And that can be a weekly goal that you have. That can be, a daily check-in or, whatever it is that works for you, but keeping that balance in the forefront, and then doing what I call a lot of time blocking. So basically, what is your number one priority for that day? So now we're going from the week to the day and looking at the time that I'm allotted in that day. So for example, if you're like me, I have clients during the day. So I have those clients scheduled in a certain spot, and I know that from 10 to 11 a.m. I'm going to be training so-and-so. So that time's already taken out of my day. So now I have, from 1 to 3 until I have to go pick up my kids or whatever it is. So what is my priority to get done during those couple of hours that I have to do other things, and kind of balancing it out that way.
Yeah. So I guess thinking about listening to each other, you really dictate your day instead of allowing the day to dictate you as far as what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's something I should say I'm not learning. I'm just doing a better job at. I've known that for years. But with the more and more as the podcast has taken off, business has taken off, and everything, I've had to make that shift more. You naturally operate in that area. That's your gift. I naturally don't operate in that area at all.
Yeah.
So, okay. So for me, I want to say from a male perspective and from a non-organized perspective is I pray a lot. I just ask the Holy Spirit for guidance to lead me, because it's easy for me just to go do whatever I need to do for that day. And I don't block it out. And now I'm taking more time like you, because I've used you as an example, or I use you as an example to kind of mirror that, to say, okay, this is what I need to do because life isn't working if I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I made a little note here, just kind of a side note with spouses, because I know we have a lot of other questions that's not necessarily pertaining to that. But as I was praying about this podcast and just asking the Holy Spirit what he was speaking, I heard him say growing in love. And I know that that's pertaining to your relationship with your spouse. And so saying, prioritizing that and looking at it as seasons, because every season of life is different. And so there's been seasons where, serving in the church or serving in ministry or work or whatever it is has been a priority for us. And that doesn't mean you let the other things in your life go. It just means that during that season, something else is more of a priority during that season, but always sticking to that core value of growing in love with your spouse and even in your relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was thinking about, so I'm going to, raw, we're always about being real and raw area for us, is we went through a season recently where I felt like we didn't put time into our marriage. And so we're a nation. So these that don't know, we have 3 kids, 2 businesses, a podcast,
3 teenagers,
3 teenagers, church. My wife's on the worship team. I mean, we pack as much as we possibly, I should say I pack as much as I possibly can in life all the time. And I even pack in stuff that I don't have time for. And so that being said, what we noticed is like, we weren't in a bad spot in our marriage, but in a place where like there was just not any connection. So, the saying out of sight, out of mind, if you're not paying attention to it, you don't think about it. So we really both were feeling frustrated about it, Kasey more so than me. And we had to make a decision. Okay, so are we going to put time into this, or are we just going to live together? Basically, I would say. So we started reading a book together. We started listening to a marriage podcast together. And then we went on a date recently, and that's kind of what inspired this podcast. This show specifically was we went on a date, went hiking, and we wrote down goals and things that we wanted to see the direction we were going to go for, the next couple months to year. So that being said, that's part of what Kasey's talking about is like the time blocking, is we look at it overall and what can we do every week for our marriage. Now, some of you that aren't married, say you're students or whatever, you're not even students, you're just starting your career off, you have relationships that are important to you, and I highly recommend you put those on the forefront of your mind and write those down and be intentional. What Kasey's talking about love is being intentional about those relationships, because what I feel like in my life is God has placed people in my life as a treasure. And we still have to take care of those relationships and value those and put time into them. So, do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking the scripture, that comes to my mind is Romans 8:14. And it says, for all who are being led by the Spirit of God, those are the sons of God. And so just, like you said, you more naturally are asking God, what do I do? How do I do this? Help me prioritize. And so I think when you put those two together, when you pair those two together, Holy Spirit and then the prioritizing of your time, through time blocking or whatever works for you. Everybody's different. And just having a goal and working together with your spouse, or, if you're not married, just having that goal for, your relationships or whatever's important, especially your walk with the Lord. And, we've been married over 18 years.
Yeah.
And so we've gone through a lot of different seasons, and it's really easy to let some of those things get out of order. And so, just staying in tune to Holy Spirit is going to be the key.
Yeah. And I was thinking, even our time with the Lord, I mean, there's sometimes it goes, I hate to say this, there's an entire week I don't even get to read my word because we get up early, we go to bed late, and it's hard. But I'll listen to a podcast or I pray while I drive or something like that. But it's really important that we put that on the forefront. So I can honestly say, when you put God first, it really does make the week go a lot smoother. So, okay, I'm going to jump on to the next question that we were asked. It says, how do you determine what is or isn't a priority? We kind of answered that, Kasey, but is there a short answer to that? I know we kind of answered that, but what do you decide is a priority?
Yeah, I think we kind of answered that, but I think it really is, looking at it kind of in seasons, like what season am I in right now? For us, it's that we have 3 teenagers, and we're basically right now growing little mini adults.
Yeah.
And that is hard work. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work.
I heard somebody say, this is funny, you might have posted this on Facebook, but you said that, or I read something that said the reason, something about like they become adults, or the reason teenagers are so hard is so it's so much easier when they're ready to leave. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just because it is so hard. I mean, you're dealing with hormones and issues and all the things. You're like, okay.
Right. You have to, it's like you are dealing with the emotional side of who they are, helping them discover and figure out who they are, which is, a lot of adults don't even know that. But, teenagers tend to go through that to the extreme with hormones and all of those other things, and even just, their course and their path for life and guiding them through that. And, the perfect example, I would say, there was a movie, and I'm not going to say what movie it is, but there's a movie that is, all the kids are going to watch, and my kids have wanted to go see it. And to be completely honest, I prayed about it and I just don't feel good about it. And I'm not that strict, mean parent that tries to, control all those things all the time, because one of the things I've learned having 3 teenagers is that they do have to somewhat learn to govern themselves in some areas. So it's not like one of those things where, I just don't let them watch anything. But I just did not get a good, vibe about this movie and everything, and prayed about it. And anyway, I basically, had this talk with my 13-year-old, and I have a 15-year-old son who wanted to go see it. And I had already, told him, I just don't feel good about it. I don't think it's a good thing. And then my 13-year-old daughter had a friend asking her to go see it. And we went out and had a day together yesterday, and we had some really good talk time. And she was saying that her friend was texting her and saying, can we go see this movie when you get home? And I just, explained to her, there's just some things that, as your parents, we're going to guide you through this, and I don't feel good about it. And I understand all your friends are going to go, see this movie, and they're talking about it and they think it's so cool. But there is a reason that God gave you us as your parents to guide you through this. I
was thinking about it too. You talk about for some parents, just a little, I don't even advice, but things that we've learned is we don't even always, there's things that our kids do that I don't agree with, that I wouldn't even do, but we let them make that decision because it's life. And then it allows us an opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, if it's not life, as long as it's not life-threatening
or sin.
Yeah, if they want to go smoke crack, I'm going to say no. But I mean, something that's like, say, a movie or something like that, there are certain things we've let them do, because what it's done is it's allowed us to open a conversation with them to say, now, do you see what happened? Like, why we didn't agree with it or why we didn't like it? Because that's one thing I've noticed with God is our Father, is He'll direct us in the path that He wants us to go, but we don't have to always go down that path.
Right.
And there's times in our lives where we do go down it, and then we're like, okay, well, this really sucks. And then He's like, well, I love you. I tried to tell you, but let's fix it, and now let's go down the right path.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I mean, this just kind of stuck with me from my conversations yesterday with Kalora. We were just, having a heart-to-heart, and she said, Mom, one of the things that Kenna told me, and Kenna is our older daughter, and she's 16 going on 17 or 25, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But she said, Kenna told me that Mom and Dad will tell you a lot of things, and you're not going to believe them that they're right, but in the end, you're going to figure out that they are right, so just listen to them. And I thought, wow, just to hear her say that, she's never said that to me.
Yeah.
But to hear Kalora repeat that and say, that our older daughter's already learning this, that, we actually do have some wisdom, it kind of just helps you to understand, you're doing all of this for a reason, and it's not pointless. But it is a season of really pouring into them. I feel like for us, equipping them for what's to come and pouring in purpose. And it's really draining. I mean, one of the things you're doing, taking Tanton to karate in the evenings and, getting home late because it's a drive home, almost an hour. And, I did that last year with the girls for dance. And there's just things that you do because that it's things that they desire. It's a heart's desire in them that God's placed in them. And you want them to be able to, have that experience or have that poured into them or have that skill or whatever it is, because it's important for their life.
Yeah. I want to tie that back real quick into just our relationship with God. Is that so many times, like, God will say, like, don't do something, and we don't always get an answer. I remember early in our walk, when we were early 20s, God would just, I felt like the Spirit would say, don't do this. Well, it doesn't, for me, naturally, like, why? I mean, that's how I felt. And I didn't always get an answer. I think it's so important that, like, God is so loving and He's so good to us. That's part of the faith walk. Is like, obviously, Kenna had to figure that out, and she's walked through that, and she's figuring that out. Like, okay, well, we're most of the time right. Well, God, what's awesome is always right. Mm-hmm. And He's going to lead us down the right path, our purpose. And sometimes we just have to surrender that. Whether we understand what's going on or not, we just have to say, okay, God, I trust you. That's the faith walk. Because I can honestly tell you, there's not one time I've looked back in our lives and thought, oh, well, God did me wrong in that area. Every time I've looked back and said, man, I'm glad I was obedient in that area, or we should have.
And it grows your faith.
Yeah, it totally grows your faith. Absolutely. So, okay, Kasey, I'm going to move on to the next question. it says, what is a main stress? So I'm going to ask you as a female perspective, what is a main stress that you have, and then how do you manage or deal with it?
Well, I think every personality is so different in this. Even for a woman, it can vary. Right. And, sometimes it's even swapped. Maybe your job descriptions are swapped. You might have a stay-at-home dad, or whatever it is. And, for me, my main priority is obviously my home, managing my home, my family, my relationship with my husband, with you, my household, and having, a routine and those kind of things are really important. I think that a lot of times families don't realize how important a routine is. Personally, I don't function well with chaos. I know that there's different personalities, and we have a couple in our house that can just fly by the seat of their pants and just go with the flow and do whatever. But what ends up happening in the long run, a lot of times without an actual routine, is there's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of, going and not getting poured back into and things like that. And so for me, partly just it being my personality, but also just looking at it from a bigger scale, it's so important to have that as a guide, this is what we need to do to keep things flowing good for our family.
But what's your main stress?
So the main stress is keeping my family, my household in order, so that we're not so completely out of routine that there's just chaos all the time. I would say that that's probably the main stressor. Okay.
So how do you deal with that? Because it is a stress, because I would actually say, so the person Kasey's referring to is me and our oldest. So we're very by the seat of your pants, just make things happen constantly. So Kasey's, I would probably say, Ken and I probably contribute to that the most, I would think. So how do you deal with that when you have other personalities or people in your life? Because not everyone has a kid or a husband, but how do you deal with people in your life that are not as organized as you, that are putting your routine out of order?
Well, I think one thing is, for us is we just have to kind of be in agreement. I know one of the things that you and I have had to do even just lately, because we've been kind of reprioritizing, is just saying partly you've been exhausted. So
who, me?
You.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been easier to get you to bed. But but I also think us saying by this time we're going to read our book. We're going to spend some time together. We're going to pray, having that routine. And, and yes, you and Kenna are more fly by the seat of your pants type personalities, but I can tell when y'all are drained and you need rest. And then Tanton, our son, he just gets a second wind at night. It's he wakes up. And so just, making sure that he goes to bed so that he can get that solid rest, because his day does start very early, and whether he gets that second wind or not, he needs the rest. And so knowing that we have to kind of keep to that, especially during the school year, and making sure that's all, the way that it should be, but even getting time together as a family, downtime, relax time, and, laughing together and just doing things together is so important. We've always made vacations a priority every year because we need that time.
I want to ask you this for the women listening. What do you think, because you have a lot of women clients, obviously, that you deal with and stuff for the fitness side, what do you feel like is a main stress for most women that you could hit on, like a number one?
With fitness? Or
no, just in any area. I mean, I think, I have no idea. I mean, what do women mostly deal with? I mean, what's a stressor?
Well, I mean, it depends on what stage of life you're in. For me,
true.
I'm a wife, I'm a mom. If you're not, you still have a lot of things that are, on your plate. I'm sure you have school, you have work, you have, responsibilities. I know every woman, cares about how they look or how they feel, their health.
Okay, so that's perfect. That's what I'm going to do. So just real quick, how do you deal with that? Because when you're dealing with all those things, I would think you have to make yourself a priority at some point.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that, you're actually giving your family a gift. If you take care of yourself, you feel better physically, spiritually, emotionally. If you, pour into yourself, read your word, spend time with the Lord, get your exercise in, eat healthy, and yes, you have to plan to do that stuff. And yes, you have to time block, but I guarantee you will be glad that you did. And not saying that I'm the ultimate example or anything like that, because I've had my seasons and I have my days and my weeks and my months and my years, but almost being 40 years old, I can say...
Man, you're old.
You don't say that to your wife.
I'm kidding. I'm older than you.
But I know you're kidding. But, I feel like the older I get, the more I look around and I realize how important it has been that I have made that a priority. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing, I'm not as organized by any means as you, but one thing I have made a priority is I work out like 4 days a week. I eat fairly healthy. I try to make an effort to eat good and I stay in good shape. So and I say that to tell the people, like, if you feel like you fall off the bandwagon for a week or for a couple days, like you can't beat yourself up in that part of the area of your life. Like if you just fall off, like the last couple of weeks, we've been getting home late from karate or whatever, and it's been hard. So like my eating habits aren't quite where I want them to be or things, but I tell people that just not to beat themselves up. Like, hey, if you fall off for a day or a week or heck, a month, just change it.
Yeah, just get back.
Yeah, because you're going to wish you did.
Yeah, and you can't, I know that a lot of women have, a fear of the gym because I deal with women and, get what you need at home. But the issue with that is if you're going to have an excuse, you're always going to have an excuse. You might get the stuff at home and then you don't do it because there's no accountability. You don't have the time. You don't, whatever your excuses are now, they're going to roll over if you don't make it a priority. And so, I tell women, it's just like hiring a hairstylist. I'm not going to cut my own hair. So hire somebody, make yourself have that accountability that you need if that's what you need. Sign up for some classes or just make a commitment to do something to get you going because, you have to start somewhere.
I was going to tell you a quick plug for a company that we're working with. It's called Fit Marriage, FITmarriage.com, fitmarriage.com. For those of you who, like what Kasey's talking about in the workout area or that are intimidated by the gym, there's a whole set of videos and workouts, home workouts that you can get at fitmarriage.com that we're a part of, that Kasey's partnered up with, that we'll be doing stuff again. So it's fitmarriage.com. You can check that out.
It's fun. It's something fun you can do with your spouse too.
Yes.
And, as our kids are getting older, they even like to come work out with us, and that's always fun having a whole family.
They do yoga and Pilates and stuff like that. I try.
And lift.
Yeah, I love to lift. I try that. So from a men's perspective, one of the things as a husband and having kids, one of the things that I struggled with really bad when we were younger would be finances. So obviously, because our role is Kasey was able to stay home with our kids, we homeschooled for years. So I felt the heavy weight of making sure that our kids and our household function, which means providing. That's been a really good area for me to learn because I've been able to counsel other men and work with other men in that area, because you have to lay that down at some point to God and just say, I trust you enough to provide. Obviously, we tithe and we give to people and we do stuff. But I've had to lay that down and just say, God, I trust you with our business, with all the things to provide and to allow that, because I used to would get so frustrated and almost angry that I was a total donkey. And that's my other word for the other word. And as you smile at me and laugh, but I'd get frustrated and I felt like I took it out on family. So I had to really have just laid that at God's feet. And what's funny about that is this last year, as I started serving people through our podcast and doing ministry, our business and everything has literally just exploded, and all these things started happening, not because of something that I did per se, but because I just put my faith more in the Lord to say, hey, you provide, I'm your child, you love me, and you're going to take care of us. Now, I'm not going to lie. There's weeks I do great, and there's hours. Sometimes it's an hourly thing. And Kasey has been a great support. And when we were younger, she would have to tell me, like, you're just going to have to trust the Lord in this area. I want to tell, like, the husbands that there's a point, like, if you don't work, then that's an issue, then you need to work. And it's a man's job to provide for his family. Now, if you swapped roles and your wife works or whatever, then that's great too. That's obviously something you guys would choose. But whatever your role is in your house, do it to the best of your ability, whether it's taking care of your house or it's working. But
in other words, it's not a pass to be lazy either way.
Yeah. Don't be lazy. Like, do everything you can do to do your best, and then where you can't make up, just allow the Lord to make up in that area, but definitely do your best. And that's one thing that I've strived for is I do my best in those areas, and God's made up in the rest. So, okay. So another question we were asked is how do you draw the line between hard working and working yourself too hard? This is going to be a fun one for me.
I was going to say, this is a lot harder for you than it is for me.
This is a fun one.
Well, do you want me to answer it, or do you?
No, go for it. Yeah, go.
Again, I think it comes down to priorities and learning how to prioritize. And, like you said, I mean, it is more natural for me. And so for the people that have a harder time with that being a natural skill, you really have to learn to have that skill to really function well in life. You really do. And I think, people with like your personality, because you're also very driven. And then on top of that, you're very kind of like, oh, well, this caught my attention and this caught my attention. So you want to do like 10 things. I
was just thinking, if I was a fish, like a trout, and there was a lure in there, like, I wouldn't last very long. I'd never be a big fish, because, like, it would pass by and be like, ooh, food, and then I'd grab it, and then you'd be sitting there, you're like, I don't think that's a good idea. Bye!
That would be sad.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're not.
I was just thinking about that, because we went fishing this summer with the Boy Scouts anyway, and I caught a big fish. So.
Yeah, so totally, different personalities are going to do different, with these areas of life and learning these skills. For me, I know it sounds really, really funny to people with your personality, but I've had to learn how to let loose, and even to...
I'm just laughing thinking about it, because you keep me so uptight.
I've had to learn to time block my fun time. And for people who don't have my personality, that sounds hilarious, I know. And so that helps me, though, because I can say, okay, you know what, from this time to this time, like, we're hanging out. I'm going to enjoy it. Like, no matter what, I'm going to have fun. I'm not going to be, pulled by all these other things that I have to do. And that's just the way my brain thinks. And so, vice versa, for people with your personality, you have to learn, like, okay, what is the priority here and how to make that happen? And, recognizing when you need rest. And I know that we've gone through a season, lots of seasons in this.
Yeah.
But you have the tendency, because of that driver personality, to just think you can just go until you hit a wall. And I've learned a lot sooner than you that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we don't function, and we've got to have that rest. So a lot of times, we use our Sundays and we get some naps in, we go to church usually, but even when we get home, just resting and relaxing. We had a nap before we came down here and did this show, and I don't think I could have done the show without that nap. So, those are just important skills to learn in life, and even, I hate to bring this up because I know it's going to touch a nerve with some people, and I know it does in our relationship, but even learning to put your phone down and not look at your phone, because Monday to Friday, you're working until bedtime. And so I get agitated sometimes when you pick that phone up on the weekends, because that's my time.
Yeah. I have to bring this up. This is funny, because our friends over at One Extraordinary Marriage, and I don't even know, so if you have kids in the car, you might want to fast forward this part as I get a look from my wife. But this is funny. You talk about time blocking for different personalities. Like, Kasey even has to schedule sex, which I think is hilarious, because there's just nothing romantic, I think, in that. Well, there is, but anyways, I just think it's...
The thought of it doesn't sound romantic.
No, it doesn't. And it's just funny, like, just the thought of that, to me, just kills me in laughter.
But partly, you're a man, and so the women can...
Partly? No, I'm pretty sure I'm all man.
I'm pretty sure you are too. But partly you're thinking of it from a man's perspective only, because the women can relate to me in that when you're married and you have a busy schedule and you are taking care of kids and running everybody's lives and working and doing all these other things, a lot of times that's the last thing on your mind. But if you know...
But it's on the front of our minds.
Right. But if we know that it's something that's going to happen, then we can mentally prepare before it gets there.
Yes.
And that helps I don't think that that's even my personality. I think that's a woman for you. But it is important, I think, for spouses to be on the same page in this area. And that's one of the things that, we laugh about because our personalities are so different, but it works.
It does. So, side note, totally got off track on that one, but it was just on my mind, so I had to bring it up. So, okay, so as trying to draw the line, this is something that I have to do daily because I'm terrible at this. I like to work, partly because I feel like I enjoy what I do, and I operate within my gifts and my purpose. But that being said, it's easy for me to work. I could work 12, 16, 18 hours a day. And part of the problem with that is I literally work until I pass out. So I will literally. And that's a bad thing. So I recognize that. So what I have to do is there's times I have to tell myself, like Kasey said, I have to set my phone down because I'm dealing with clients, or I have to think about something else, or I'm home, so I need to prioritize and put my Kasey first, or the kids. And not so much just work is the fact that I will find something to do because I don't like to rest. The comment that's come out of my mouth before is, I wish God made us so we didn't have to sleep, so we could just do stuff all the time, every day.
And me and Clara love sleep.
And you guys love sleep, yeah. So like Kasey and then will go nap, and I'll go find something to do because there's just something that can be done.
You used to.
I used to, yeah. I'm getting better. There's days where I still do that, but like today I actually just passed out. So, okay, moving on. Last question. Kasey, what do you do? What's the balance in all of these things for you?
Well, I looked up the word balance just because that's just the way my brain works. I'm just kind of interested in
what is the balance?
And some of the words that stuck out to me was equal, steady, and correct proportions. And so I thought that was really, really kind of a good way to think of it. If you can put things in the correct proportions in your life. So coming back to what we talked about in the beginning, prioritizing your relationship with the Lord and your relationship with your spouse. And by prioritizing, again, I'm just going to kind of recap that. But what we're talking about is having that at the forefront of your mind and making that effort, whatever it is for you, what it looks like for the day and for the week and for the month. So what is your long-term goal, and how do you get there, and breaking that down,
So what do you do? Do you write it? I know I use sticky notes because I literally have sticky notes in like my truck and books, like different things.
For what?
Well, for goals, yeah, to put it in my mind because it's got to be in the forefront because it's easy to get caught up in life. What do you do?
Well, I use my planner, and, I have my routines, which we talked about routines, which is one of the reasons why I like routine, and getting out of my routine is so hard because a lot of times those things get jumbled up. So if you just go day to day and fly, by the seat of your pants, what ends up happening is a lot of times is you're not going anywhere.
I love that you brought up that when you said going by the seat of your pants in life and just you're not going anywhere. I mean, that literally is in work, marriage, finding your purpose, any relationship, your kids, like everything. Like it is so important. People recognize like you have to be intentional, working out, food, everything.
And I think the issue is with a lot of people, or at least people I talk to, especially women, it's almost overwhelming because you think of life and it's like all these things. How do I do that in all these areas? I feel overwhelmed by it, And so sometimes it seems easier to just give up and just say, oh, well, whatever, I'll just go to work, do my thing, go through the motions. But what ends up happening, you look back, at the end of the year, a couple years, and you're in the same place you were, a couple years before, or,
or worse,
even 10 years, 15 years. And so, even if it's not going to happen overnight, it's going to be very intentional, and it takes time. And so really looking at it and saying, okay, where do I start? What area do I need to look at that's going to help me get where I need to be? And if it takes you 6 months to get that one area of your life, whatever it is, if it's your marriage, because I feel like that's such a huge priority and not everybody is married, but if you are, and you and your spouse are fly by the seat of your pants and you're going different directions, I mean, that's miserable.
Yeah.
And so that would be, my advice would be start there and obviously intentionally in every area of your marriage, and spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of that. But then from there, look at it. Are you 150 pounds overweight, and is your health suffering? And do you feel that all the time? You really can't function in life if you have all that other stuff going on. So maybe that would be your next thing. How do I get to where I'm healthy? And when you're going through that journey, it's also a spiritual journey, So
one thing we did recently, Real Nation, is I'm calling it the Fuller 5. So it's faith, family, fitness, fun, and finances. So if you write those 5 things down on a piece of paper, take some quiet time and write those things down. And just be honest with yourself and ask yourself, where am I at in my faith? Where am I at with family, fitness, fun activities, and finances? And if you think of it or you look at it as like a cog or a wheel and kind of rate them. I do this with my clients when I counsel. So if you rate them from like a 1 to a 10, and a 10 being a perfect circle, when you set that on a piece of paper and you realize that, like, okay, well, maybe I'm a 10 in my marriage, but I'm a 5 in finances or whatever, they go up and down. What you're going to notice is you're operating with a flat tire or a very out of proportion tire. And those are going to change literally every season, or if not monthly if you're not intentional. And what I have to do is sometimes every week is I think about, where am I at in this area? And what do I need to do to up it to a 10? Or maybe, and sometimes for me, like, let's say I'm at a 2. Well, a 10 is just not going to happen, and I'm going to stress myself out. So I'm going to shoot for a 5 or 6 this week.
Break it down into smaller goals. And
say, okay, what can I do to up my game? And so I just encourage you guys to write those 5 things down.
And just like God is gracious with us, be gracious with yourself.
Yeah, no kidding.
You can't just look at it and say, oh, I'm a failure. I'm never going to get there. This is so bad, and beat yourself up. That's not the point. The point is starting somewhere, wherever you're at, and being honest with, where you are and where you want to go, and then how can you get there.
So, okay. You have anything else to wrap up our show? We are about out of time, my dear.
I don't think so.
Okay. Roar Nation, I hope that helped you out. I want you guys to please send us some emails and review us on iTunes. I would love to hear about some of the things, questions, concerns, thoughts, whatever is on your mind, things you would like to hear, things to motivate you. We're talking about creating some courses. If there's some things that you feel like would help you guys in your walk with the Lord and life, we're going to start creating some stuff to help you guys out, and then also starting a Facebook community to get you guys plugged into. For those of you who don't know, because I never talk about it, we do have a Are You Real Facebook page that you guys can get on there that we're going to start posting stuff and promoting. So get on there. If you guys even got questions, that is a great place to post questions on Facebook, the Are You Real? And so that way we can connect with you guys. And for you women, you can connect with Kasey. She can respond. And for you men, I'd be happy. We can talk about anything. Doesn't really matter. It's about being real. So anyways, we love you guys. Please check us out. Get on there. And remember, be real, be authentic, and be you. God bless.
That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.